The future is here! Nah, I'm not talking about spacesuit onesies or living underground. I mean some cool stuff like teleporting, space travel, understanding your dogs, and so on. Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg emphasized that augmented reality could teleport people to any location they wanted, whether it was for work or just having a relaxing day at the beach. With the metaverse in play, entering a virtual room is already happening. The metaverse is a virtual space where people can interact and socialize with each other through technology. It'll make you feel like you're physically present in the same place as other people, rather than just typing in a chat box. Imagine gaming or working remotely, but having a clear view of your office at the same time. You can achieve anything you need to do at work and also save time and money you'd spend on commuting. The only downside of working remotely is the lack of socialization. But being in the metaverse will let you feel like you're not alone. The screens will be interactive, and communicating with your coworkers, friends, and family will look cooler. Even though we're not there yet with physical teleportation, virtually we can pin ourselves anywhere we want. Nanobots are called this way because they're really tiny. These robots are designed to perform specific tasks inside the human body for medical reasons. Once inside, they start acting on their own without the need to be controlled. Oh, and they can multiply like our cells. Now, we've often heard the word nanobots tossed around in sci-fi movies, but it's not that far-fetched. They're designed to perform super-specific tasks, especially in the world of medicine. Think of them as little mini-doctors inside your body that are accurate enough to diagnose the problem and prescribe treatment. Everyone will be healthier than before with these little bad boys. Now, every year, the population of Earth increases, the cause of which has been linked to babies. This means a higher demand for food. There's only so much space in urban areas, so farms will soon have to be located in the most unconventional places, like skyscrapers or in the air. And in the air means structures that can support vegetation on platforms. A prominent architect, Javier Pons, designed a building with 3 levels powered by solar panels on the top. The middle layer will grow various vegetables and fruits that will get nutrients from liquid instead of soil. The remains of the plants will drop to the bottom layer to feed fish, which can also be grown for food. Each structure will be large enough to support an entire city if needed. Skyscrapers can also host some mini farms on rooftops to support neighborhoods. A lot of greenery in cities will reduce pollution and essentially lower temperatures in hot places. Now, what about our cute little pooches? We all love coming home to our dogs, sprinting up to us and jumping around. They're either saying, "Feed me, I'm starving," or "Please don't ever leave me again." But what if we could figure out exactly what they're saying? Well, we've developed technology to understand our dogs clearer with the help of a mood collar. You put the device on your dog, and a digital screen indicates your dog's mood by colors. We already know that dogs speak to us or other dogs using their body language. A wagging tail is a sign of excitement or happiness. Snarling and exposed teeth mean aggression and back off. And of course, there's barking. Some barking noises can be warnings, others might be friendly greetings. Artificial intelligence will help us understand what our dogs are telling us by recording them on our phones. It's important that the app sees the dog's body language too, including the pooch's ears, tail, eyes, mouth, and so on. The app will then send this information to the cloud. The AI technology will decode this data by studying thousands of hours of animal footage and picking up the right expressions and sounds. This will allow vets to better understand their dog patients and prevent any harm that can follow. It will also help train dogs not to be too friendly to delivery people or pedestrians walking by in the park. The future of commuting lies in the air. No longer will we have to wait at a red light, counting the seconds till it turns green so we can make it on time to work. What if we use flying taxis as a means of human transportation? Hey, now we're talking! Electric air taxis are becoming a thing for transporting people. Amazon is experimenting with air deliveries, and they're proving to be a success. Flying machines have sensors that can notice hazards like birds, wires, and large objects. It's up to countries to adopt this new form of transportation. Even though air deliveries are available, authorities still need to figure out how to organize them, create rules, and set up safety measures. As for air taxis operated by people, we have to consider who is eligible to drive them or what kind of models can be produced. But we might see the sky filled with air taxis already in our lifetime. The future of fast food is about to change pretty soon. There are already digital cashiers where you can order food using a touchscreen and pay there without interacting with a human. Still want fries with that? Japan has pizza vending machines where you can buy freshly baked pizzas. Companies are creating robots that can prepare a burger and fries menu. They're quick and accurate. They won't add too much cheese or forget the onions. All these robots need someone to maintain them. Now imagine going to a fast food joint and not seeing a single human in front of you. You place your order with a digital cashier after customizing it. You pay and watch the robots at work. You'll likely see mechanical arms lifting the deep fryer and preparing a burger in front of you. Don't expect to see a humanoid chef preparing your meal. Robots are designed to perform specific tasks. That's why mechanical arms are more than enough. And if the future is flying delivery robots, there won't be any hassle of someone getting stuck in traffic while bringing your meal. Booking a ticket across the world is easy, but what if you could go to space for fun? Many major space travel companies like SpaceX and Virgin Galactic are looking for ways to turn space into a new tourist hub. It may go as far as the International Space Station or just to the border between the atmosphere and what is considered space. There's also the idea of a space elevator that could send people to the International Space Station. It'd be a tall structure based on Earth and reaching space, with an elevator moving passengers up and down. This would make space travel very accessible for anyone and cheaper than launching a rocket into space. There might be a future where the internet will be available everywhere around the world, no matter where you are. It's crazy, but only half of the world's population is online. Companies like Google see the internet as a human right and are trying to use helium balloons to beam it to remote places. Other companies are trying a different approach, like sending microsatellites into space, each the size of a cat. Meow. This will be a game changer for everyone to have access to the internet, which essentially means free knowledge for all. Imagine good old bricks being able to store energy to power your house. This project is still in its very early stages, but scientists in America are developing something called smart bricks that could be the future of construction. Each wall can store so much energy that it'll last for many hours. A special coating known as PDOT will harness electrodes, ultimately converting the bricks into powerful batteries. The red pigment in the bricks is made of iron oxide, which also helps them store energy. This will make a smart home even smarter.
Imagine that it's the year 2025, and our planet has completely changed. Rising sea levels, extreme weather, and the ocean becoming more and more acidic are just some of the problems people have been dealing with for years. But in one of the world's largest coastal cities, the situation has become too serious. It was a sunny day in June when a massive earthquake shook the city to its core. The ground beneath people's feet heaved and shook, and buildings swayed dangerously. People ran through the streets in panic, trying to find safety. But as soon as the ground settled, the inhabitants of the city realized the real danger. A wall of water, almost 100 feet high, was rushing toward the city, propelled by the force of the earthquake. The tsunami hit the city with unimaginable force. Entire neighborhoods were wiped out, and thousands of people lost their lives. But here's where things get interesting. In the aftermath of the disaster, the city's authorities realized that they couldn't just rebuild the city as it was before. They needed to be better prepared for the next potential disaster. And so they came up with an incredibly ambitious project to build an underwater city. The goal was to create a self-sufficient, sustainable city beneath the ocean's surface that could withstand any natural disaster. The underwater city would be powered by renewable energy, using tidal power and underwater solar panels. It would be designed to withstand extreme weather and would have its own emergency response systems. The project attracted some of the world's top scientists, engineers, and architects. They worked tirelessly to design the city and carefully considered every aspect of the project. The underwater city would have everything that a typical city had, from schools and hospitals to stores and restaurants. There would be underwater farms where fish and other marine creatures could grow. The city would even have its transportation system, advanced submarines, and underwater tunnels connecting different parts of the city. The project became a shining beacon of hope for people. It showed that even in the face of disaster, we could come together to create something amazing. But as time went on, the project no longer seemed so perfect. The cost of the project turned out to be higher than planned. There were also concerns about how long such a project would exist. After all, the ocean is very unpredictable. And still, the team of scientists and engineers never gave up. After years of trial and error, they finally created the perfect underwater city, a marvel of engineering, a self-contained ecosystem that could sustain people indefinitely. The buildings were constructed from a material that could withstand the immense pressure at the bottom of the ocean, and the city itself was powered by a network of advanced hydroelectric turbines. It wasn't long before the first wave of colonists arrived at the underwater city. There were different people in this group, and each of them had their own reasons for choosing to live in this new world beneath the waves. Some were adventurers seeking a new world to explore, while others were hoping to escape natural disasters raging on dry land. But despite their differences, all these people shared a common goal: to build a new society, one that was in harmony with the natural world. The underwater city flourished, and new discoveries were made every day. The colonists developed new technologies and ways to tame the power of the ocean. They learned to farm the sea and started cultivating underwater gardens that provided them with a steady food supply. But living underwater was challenging. People felt isolated and even claustrophobic. The situation came to a head when a group of activists started to protest against the city's expansion plans. They argued that the underwater city was a threat to the environment it was meant to protect, and that the colonists should focus on reducing their impact on the delicate underwater life. The protests sparked a heated debate among the colonists. Some of them argued that the survival of the city depended on its growth and expansion. Others claimed that the city needed to prioritize the protection of the environment above all else. In the end, a compromise was reached. The city would continue to expand, but the main priority would be sustainability and a responsible attitude to nature. The colonists would do their best to reduce their impact on the environment by using new technologies and following strict conservation rules. And they would also remember the importance of protecting the ocean and its fragile ecosystem. Years went by, and the underwater city continued to thrive. New generations of colonists were born, and they grew up in a world entirely different from the one their ancestors had known. They never saw the world on the surface, but appreciated the beauty and complexity of the underwater world they called home. And as the years passed, the city became a symbol of hope for a world struggling with the devastating effects of climate change. It showed that despite all difficulties, people could come together to create a better world. It is a reminder that the future is not set in stone, and that we can build it sustainably and in harmony with the natural world.
So, time travel is real. Actually, you're traveling through time right now. With every second of this video, you move 1 second into the future. But there's one person on Earth who has managed to time travel a little further into the future, 0.02 of a second. And that's not the limit. Meet Sergei Krikalev. He's an astronaut who spent 803 days, 9 hours, and 39 minutes on the International Space Station. That's the key to his time travel. The point is that for two objects, one standing still and the other moving, time flow is different. That is, if we take our planet as one object and the ISS as the other, time on Earth and on the ISS will go differently. But this is not enough to significantly affect time. We need to look at gravity. The larger the object, the stronger its gravitational force. For example, on the Moon, you can jump higher and lift heavier objects than on Earth because the Moon is light. But on Jupiter, you can barely stand on your feet because it's heavy and its gravity is many times stronger. gravity bends space-time itself. Imagine a trampoline or a stretched sheet. As long as there's nothing on it, space-time is even, and time is the same at all points. But put a heavy object there, and you'll see a pit forming in it. Now imagine putting a heavy object like the planet Earth in the center of the sheet. It weighs 6 tons, plus another 21 zeros. It would bend our sheet so much that time would go differently in the center than in a place where space-time is flat. And the heavier the object, the greater the warp, and the slower time will go there. For example, near the Sun, time goes even slower than on our planet because it's more than 300,000 times heavier. Or take a black hole. Even a small one weighs tens or hundreds of times more than the Sun. And supermassive ones are millions and billions of times heavier. They will bend space-time so much that time near them practically stops. So, our hero, Sergei Krikalev, used this very method of time travel. He just wasn't at the very depth of this time-space vortex, but on the ISS. It's at a point in space-time where the curvature of the sheet isn't that strong. And time went a little faster for him than it does here. Just a little bit. And if you spend enough time there, gradually, you start to overtake the people here on Earth in time. Sergei could have gone much farther in time, but another law of physics prevented him from doing so. It's all about the unity of space and time. If you're standing, you're only moving in time. But if you run forward, you move both in time and space. The faster you run through space, the slower you move in time. The International Space Station travels around our planet at 4.7 miles per second. This speed slowed down Sergei's movement through time. So in more than 2 years on the ISS, he only traveled in time by 2/100ths of a second. So here's a way that you can time travel. Seat your friend at a table and give them one watch. Put the other one on your arm and start running around the table. If you run fast and long enough, you'll notice how the time on your watch and your friends is different. Voila! You have traveled through time. But there are other ways to get to the future. For the first way, you need to get to a black hole. The closest one is just over 1,000 light years away from our solar system. You jump into your faster-than-light spaceship and arrive there. You need to fly as close as possible to its center, to the very edge of the event horizon. Space-time is so warped here that 1 second can be equal to weeks or even months on Earth. So just wait here for a few minutes. Now, turn the hyperdrives back on and fly away. Of course, you have to be careful here. Black holes are so heavy that nothing can escape their gravitational force. Even light, which is the fastest thing in the universe, can't escape a black hole's embrace. But that's no problem for you, and you're already on your home planet. Wow, it's been decades on Earth while you've been away. There are flying cars, robots, and holograms everywhere. Another option is traveling at the speed of light. You and your friend are standing on the starting line at the stadium, and each of you has a stopwatch. Press start, you run at the speed of light around the Earth a few times, and finish. Stop the clock. The time with which you ran your sprint is less than that of your friend who was standing still. But there's a so-called twin paradox that scientists are still racking their brains over. It's all about what to take as a reference point. If the center of the coordinate system is a person standing still, and the other is running at the speed of light, then the runner's clock will lag after the run, because they were moving not only in time, but also in space, remember? But if you take the runner as the reference point, it was the static person who was in motion relative to them. And then the static person's clock would have to be behind. So as a result of the experiment, both guys' clocks, the runner and the static guy, would show the same time. This is the twin paradox. Another way to cheat the laws of physics and stop the flow of time is to get into the plank position. Then time just stops for you. Okay, just kidding. Assuming that traveling back in time is possible, there's a whole bunch of problems and paradoxes. For example, at 12 p.m., you're engaged in building a time machine. At 12:30, you finish building it. And then, at 1 p.m., you enter it for one purpose: to prevent you from building the time machine yourself. Then you go back in time at 12:20, when the time machine is almost finished, and break one of its details so that it can't be built to start with. But if your younger version couldn't build a time machine, then there's no way that you could get to the past either, right? Or what if you did build a time machine and went back in time to your father when he was on a date with your mom? You ruin their date and they break up. In this case, your birth would have been impossible. But if you hadn't been born, you would never have built a time machine and gone back in time to ruin your daddy's date. And then nothing would have interfered with your birth. Wow, things are getting a little too complicated. Okay, there are simpler ways to travel through time. For example, biological ones. I'm talking about freezing. If you freeze your body, you will move through time with the rest of the world, but you'll be asleep the whole time. And when you wake up, you'll be in the future. By the way, animals that hibernate in winter, like bears, are time travelers. They simply skip the hungry winter seasons. But there's one problem with that. When we freeze, the water in our cells and tissues turns to ice, and as a consequence, they feel dehydrated, like in a desert. This can be avoided by using protective chemicals. But the hardest part is the awakening. Our scientists can't safely unfreeze a living organism. So, for now, freezing your body is a one-way ticket. But we have hope that scientists of the future will find a way to avoid damaging cells and tissues. Then, they'll open refrigerators with people and wake up a whole bunch of time travelers. And that's a pretty expensive adventure. Freezing an entire body can cost $200,000 or more. But many people believe that time travel is already real, and some time travelers have been caught in photographs or camera footage. For example, this photo from 1941. There are men in suits and women in elegant hats, and among them, this guy in futuristic glasses and hoodie. Or this video, where you can see a woman in the background, talking on her cell phone. Wow, that was about a century ago, and back then, no one could imagine what a cell phone was. Well, these facts can be easily explained. The man in the photo is wearing glasses that were made back in 1920, and the t-shirt and hoodie also already existed at that time. And the woman talking on the cell phone is actually holding an acousticon in her hand. It's kind of a hearing aid, one of the first of its kind. So we can say one thing for sure: time travel remains just a dream for all people. Except Sergei Krikalev, who was able to trick the laws of physics and be 0.02 of a second ahead of all the people on Earth.